Hello, everyone. Welcome to the third paper session, Environment and Bioethics. I'm Sun Kyung-Yu, a professor of philosophy at the Minnesota State University in Mankato in the USA. I'm originally from Seoul, South Korea. It's an honor to be invited to participate in the 17th Shikadita Conference. This session has 3 presentations. Each speaker will take 15 to 20 minutes, and we'll have about half an hour question and answer at the end of this session. So you attendees, please write down your questions in the Q&A box on the Zoom menu below, and I will deliver them to each speaker. Without further ado, please let me introduce our first speaker, Debra Boudreaux. Before I introduce her, the location she lives in, the internet connection is unstable, so please bear with us. Debra is a member of a senior volunteer with the Buddhist Fuji Foundation. She leads Buddhist and Catholic interfaith dialogue and serves as a member of UN Multi-Faith Advisory Council and Secretary of Global NGO Executive Committee of UN DGC. She serves as one of the board trustees of Parliament of World Religion. She has more than 33 years of experience working on major social movement projects related to charity, healthcare, education, and humanitarian aid. Previously, she was the CEO of Buddhist Fuji Medical Foundation. The title of her talk is Buddhist Women Working Together to Safeguard the Earth, Implementer of Generation Equality. So please welcome her, Debra Boudreaux.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for Sun Kyung-Yu, our host, to do the brief introduction. And I have to apologize because the location is raining now, so the connection is not so great. But I'm very grateful our team behind Jackson and all the silent heroes support me to share the PowerPoint. The topic I'm going to share is Buddhist women working together to safeguard the earth during this pandemic situation. Second slide, please. As we all know, COVID pandemic really hit everybody very hard. So how every one of us can use effectiveness of technology during the global south and global north, and to invite our women and girls in all diversity to engage and to learn from there. For the foundation I'm working with, Buddha Tzu Foundation, when we look back from 2020 until now, so many relief items that we have been provided, those numbers are true numbers, no matter surgical mask, care pack, food boxes, medical devices, rapid test, most urgent need right now, and also vegetarian meals. Everything is linkage together. And the cloth mask, we empower the woman to make the cloth mask during the shortage. Go to the slide number 3. What we are really learning from ecological and holistic approach, we try to protect our environment, even though during the COVID situation. So it is not an easy task. It's a green living methodology and conversation. So by going from green living to going vegetarian, and each one of us to share the successful story. And during the successful story, we try to identify the circular economy through the recycling. So ecological degradation and the impact on peoples and life forms are entwined. So many are one phenomenon and must be addressed holistically. So interfaith in Buddhist, next slide please, is so critical. Venerable Dharma Master Si Zhengyan, she is a very profound, unbelievable woman leaders. In 1990s, she established aware of what's happening in the world. So you see on the PowerPoint, the slide, she started a very humble shop. This shop is the where she practiced the Buddhism. She started with 5 women and she visited the vulnerable population in a remote area. And on the slide, you can see a very holistic temples now is from 1966 until today, 56 years. Her footprint enriched so many volunteers and regard of age, classes, and background. And everybody cultivate the Buddhist practice. Next slide, please. Buddhist in actions. From environmental protection of the earth to environmental protection of the soul, Tzu Chi advocates a healthy diet, eat more fruits and vegetables, and eat less meat, pursue a simple life, reduce the carbon footprint, enhances ethics, and implement environmental awareness in our daily life. From so many people around the world, so many true successful stories, how to curbing our desire for a better world, recycling from inside out, cleaner mind, cleaner world, living in harmony with the earth, creating a pure land on earth, leading a simple life. Every single footprint is the way she encouraged and she leading us. So my paper research problem and objectives has been identified. Next slide, please. 4 major areas. These 4 major areas started from COVID-19 awakening and leading into ecological degradation, and Master Zhengyan called for everybody waste reduction and resources recovery. And from environmental protection of the earth to environmental protection of the soul. So Tzu Chi really empowered the woman. Next slide, please. From the Buddhist meditation, meditation is very common. So how to practice the meditation? The way she developed is a new impetus to address pre-existing systematic and environmental issues. While we're seeking to address new challenges, including the COVID pandemic, increasing inequality, rising racism, and the climate crisis. So on the pictures, you can see volunteer women, especially women and girls, go into all walks of life, integrate into the daily system, and try to work it out with the population. Through the develop the PPE, protected gun, going to the hospital, meeting with all the medical professionals, provide a greeting to the medical providers, and give them financial support and also spiritual support. The most important, give them love and care. So the methodology, next slide, please, is by using clapping hands, establish the environmental protection recycling station. Next slide, please. So from the methodology one, you can see environment is so important. So recycling paper containers, recycling plastic, sorting recyclable with heart, and giving old clothes to new life. The way she empowered everybody to think about how can we change? How can we create our space? The very simple one, everyone have two hands. These two hands can start it to our daily life. And so she established the recycling centers and empowered the old generation to make their life more meaningful. So they will not stay at home. They can come out by recycling all kinds of goods, materials, second-use clothes, and most important, the recycling the plastic. Next slide, please. So the pattern for the daily life, by simplify our food, our clothing, our living spaces, and transportation method. So you can see guardians of the land, a life reborn. Every single picture you see has a successful story. The empowerment from grandma goes to school, life begins at 70. I only want to be with you. Grandma joy, tough guy, soft heart, 1/3 of happiness, a changed man, alive to reborn. Every day, everyone have a very true story you're going through by practice, the model of the practice of Buddhism. Next slide, please. The way Master Zheng Yan set up the role model, influence others, and enable them to transform delusion into awakening. The way the practice is no work, no meal. This kind of practice has been for more than 56 years. She, next slide please. She engaged very strong self-reflection and repentance. A way to transform our mind is engage ourselves. Did we do anything wrong? How can we do a better way and do the right things? So daily sutra chanting, 3 times prayers, self-reflection is the leading of the Master's Zheng Yan's teaching. Next slide, please. So from identify our resources, and we use the methodology to develop pre-existing systematic environmental issues and established environmental protection recycling stations, and also started to remind everyone, simplify our food, our mind, our living space, and transportations. That's the practice for Buddhism. And set up a role models, we can start it to engage others and enable them to transform delusion into awakening. And most important, self-reflections and repentance. So next slide, please. So critical at this moment, pandemic leading us to think about gender equality. But the most important, how to think about our food, our earth. Every single day, the Mother Earth is suffering. So from our food, our earth, every single episode, you have those resources I will share with you. You are invited to take a look at it. Every single story is every story of successful. So traditional Mongolian diet is heavily meat and dairy based. But now more and more Mongolians are turned into leafy greens and fruits to keep their diet balanced. And in Taiwan, most of the schools provide lunches to their students, but due to budgets, the food provided can differ greatly between urban school and those in the remote areas. So there's so many stories successful. We collect the data and to share what is our earth, and what is our food, and how can we engage for the climate justice. And next slide, please. It's also involved to water. Water is sources of our life. And this is going to be a very, very important challenge that we are facing around the world right now. As a woman, as a leaders, how can we be started, safeguard, and be prepared? So there's so many educational materials. At the beginning, I share with by using our clapping two hands. Each single fingers can identify one major mission. And for Buddhists, it's so important for every single movement, we need to document it and we need to share with the United Nations. So next slide, please. So when I share this report, I really would like to share the outcome. Religious actors are powerful forces for climate advocacy. We address interconnected issues such as racial justice, ending gender-based violence, and defending indigenous rights at local, regional, and global space. The picture you saw, the episode you're going to watch, the story you're going to hear, everything related to religious. And as of the end of 2019, there were more than 89,585 environmental protection volunteers. 65% now is even higher, are women in Taiwan, working hard to protect the earth every day. The faith community is and will continue to be an inter-religious part by grassroots to feminist climate initiative, working to improve the existing behavior pattern. And the last one, Master Zheng Yan, she has, next slide, please. Master Zheng Yan, she has 3 wishes every year. Number 1, to purify people's hearts. Number 2, harmonious society. Number 3, free from disasters. No killing, respect life is her key topic right now. Every second, more than 2,556 animals are killed. Every day, over 220 million animals are slaughtered. Every year, over 80.6 billion animals are killed. This is not including the ocean. Every single day when people open our mouth, we eat a lot of life. So how can we start it, no killing, respect the life, and bring our resources to the United Nations to demonstrate the Buddhist practice, and the most important, to share our data. It is so critical. So next slide, please. This is all the resources for Buddhists in actions. You are welcome to look into that, no matter through social media, Facebook, Rapid, or Instagram, or Twitter. You have the chance to know more about what Buddhists in action to support the climate change. So the topic, the paper presentation, to safeguard the earth, implement for generation equality through various projects to support and green living, going vegetarian, sharing successful story, and engage the recycling movement. This is the information I would like to share. There's so many things we can work it out together. Women and girls are the key leaders of the community and the key presenter and stakeholder for this project. Buddhists in action, that's I would like to share with everyone. Compassion in action, Buddhists in action. Thank you very much. Ci means compassion, Ji means relief. Buddhist Ci Ji Foundation, led by Dharma Master Zheng Yan for 56 years. by using clapping two hands to face the challenge for climate crisis. The data can present. We are supporting, we are reducing the temperature, and we can make the world a better way for our young generation to live. Thank you so much. Cảm ơn, Omi Toko.
Thank you, Debra. Thank you so much for the clear and informative presentation. Again, if you have any questions to Debra's presentation, you attendees, please write down your questions at the Q&A box on the bottom of your screen, the Zoom menu. Okay, and please let me introduce our second speaker, Gurmeet Kaur. Gurmeet is a senior research fellow at the Department Home Center for Women's Studies and Development, Punjab University. She is also completing her PhD in Buddhist studies at the same university. She taught gender studies in the Institute of Social Science Education and Research and received Swami Vivekananda Single Girl Child Scholarship. Her research focus lies at the intersection of Buddhist studies, gender, and forced migration. Her most recent publication is Buddhism and Woman in Bloomsbury Religion in North America, or Bloomsbury Academic. The title of her talk today is Similarities and Differences in Buddhist and Feminist Bioethics. Gurmeet.
Thank you for introducing. So the title of my topic, as I have said, it's Similarities and Differences in Buddhist and Feminist Bioethics. So this particular paper is focused on Indian Buddhism. So to begin with, India has a long history of teaching and preaching ethical concept to the masses. Such concepts has crossed the ideological boundaries. In other words, the impact of the ethics of one tradition is visible on the other. For instance, the influence of ethics embedded in Vedas has a great impact on later form tradition, Buddhism and Jainism. So regardless of the tradition, Indian tradition advocates that the life of a sentient being is made up of three pillars: ethics, thoughts, and behavior. All of them are indivisible and cannot be studied in isolation. Thoughts of a being determines the action, and ethics are reflected in their behavior. The development of ethics is imperative to cultivate humanly values like humility, generosity, tolerance, courage, strength of a character, etc. Without these qualities, a sentient being is considered to be incomplete. Therefore, the ethics allow a being to live peacefully and harmoniously in the society. Now, from the outset, I intend to clear that the Indian concept of ethics differ vastly with that of a West. In West, the ethic is primarily studied in the discipline of philosophy and may be defined as a study of morality. In other words, the ethic covers the theory and the moral and the practice. It is a coherent set of rules and principles by which a people ought to live. Ethics usually proceed in a dialectic manner. That is, it uses a rigorous analysis to reveal the flaws of a logic and the contradiction of a reasoning and seeks to go beyond them. On the other hand, Eastern traditions acknowledges its origin in religion and philosophical thought. In the West, ethics are also sometimes designated as a science of a character, habit of activity, or a conduct of a human beings. While the Indian traditions claim that the ethics reduces a friction between sentient beings without destroying mental and physical energy. For example, refraining from violence, respecting others' opinion and physical space, etc. Now, the common thread between East and West is their understanding that ethic leads to the better functionality, optimum productivity, and smooth functioning of a society. In 21st century, among Indian tradition, Buddhism is widely studied and quoted and practiced for its ontology and epistemology, especially concerning ethics. It is evident from the fact that even after 2600 years of its formation, ethical practices has not lost its value. In fact, it has helped a sentient being to understand the swalakshan of the things, that is the nature of a things. So understanding the swalakshan of not only things but also being is a need of a time in present era, where the technology is taking over human resources, countries are being bombed, and the rights of women and LGBTQ and minorities are not given to them. So the question that largely looms into the mind is, how does Buddhism and feminism in such concepts? So in this concept, this paper is divided in primarily two sections. First is conceptualization of Buddhist and feminist ethics, and second is to establish differences and similarities and differences between Buddhist and feminist bioethics. For the same, I have used a methodology. So the present study is conducted using a Buddhist canonical text of both Theravada and Mahayana. Objective of research is to establish, like I mentioned, similarities and differences. The reason for the writing this paper, or even conceptualizing this, to throw a light on the lesser known facts about bioethics in both gender studies and Buddhist studies. Now, too often, feminist scholars are seen as critiquing bioethics for the lack of inclusion of a woman perspective. Through this paper, the present researcher, that means me, has tried to look at the other side also. For the same, the literature was reviewed using primary and secondary data available in 4 languages, as you can see on the slide: Tibetan, Sanskrit, Pali, and English. Coming to the first part of the paper, conceptualizing feminist and Buddhist ethics, Buddha throughout his life laid a heavy emphasis on the cultivation of ethics, or sheel as we call it, in our thoughts and its resulting action. The common thread between thoughts and action is ethics. However, unlike Hinduism, Buddhist ethics does not adhere to the social institution and tradition. It seeks the basis of a morality immediately rather than a universal truths, which are to be realized by everyone, wisdom and attainment. Now, this automatic principle and personal basic of a Buddhist morality was a new departure in the history of Indian religious traditions and laid the foundation of universal religion of Buddhism. Now, the fundamental trait of a Buddhist ethic consists in its practical nature. As mentioned earlier, the base of a Buddhism or a Buddha's Dhamma is ethical and moral conduct of an individual in one's life without abiding by the rules of a supernatural or omnipresent power. The canonical Buddhist literature speaks of a compassion and kindness toward oneself and others. A renowned Buddhist bioethist, Damien Keon, opined that the Dhamma provides organized and systematic exposition of normative ethical principles for being to lead a noble life. Buddha, in his Dhamma, sought the answer to lead a best life for a being. He named it as a noble way of a living. Now, such kind of a living has 2 main goals: attainment of an intellectual vision of a reality and living holistic human life. Now, Buddhist ethics are grounded in the theory of nature of reality. It is logically placed in a presumption that everything has a cause and something cannot arise out of nothing. Similar approach has been observed among the feminist scholars who study ethics. They also find that the agency of discrimination does not exist independently. Rather, they are dependent on each other. Now, the feminist approach towards ethics begin from the base argument that the domination of men is morally wrong and the moral experience of a woman is worthy of a respect as that of a man. On theoretical level, the goal of a feminist ethic is to develop a philosophical account of the nature of morality and of a central moral concept that treat women's moral experience respectfully, though never uncritically. In this context, feminism is a vast canvas and encompasses a wide range of women-centric issues that must be addressed. Now, many of these major bioethical issues today are abortion, fertility, cosmetic surgery, adoption, and surrogacy that relates directly to gender and sexuality. Now, despite the work on Buddhist ethics by Buddhist scholars, the scholars have displayed a remarkable lack of interest and urgency involved involving a woman in any significant way in the decision-making process. Now, almost all Buddhist scholars honor Tripitaka or Tipitak and a wide range of Mayan texts when talking about the Buddhist Vaya ethics. Now, these texts assume a dialogue between a lay people and scholar. In this way, these texts can be seen as a reflection of a need and concerns of an ordinary Buddhist integrated with the response of a scholars. Now, there's a limitation also. One of the main limitations with researching Maya ethics through the text is that only a limited number of texts are translated and published. It is therefore questionable how representative they are of a judicial opinion obtained by Buddhists. Considering this, the next few sections will throw a light on similarities and differences. For the same, I have chosen two topics, that is abortion and surrogacy. Now, when we talk about abortion, dwelling on the debate, prima facie, all of us come across the dilemma about two ethically distinct concepts, that is, the right of a life of a fetus and autonomy of a mother. Now, this conflict is further elaborated by asking a question such as, are fetus human beings? When does the life begin? Is the sanctity of life of fetus is on par with the mother? In all these questions and disputes, feminists appeal of recognizing mother's autonomy superior than any claim of a right of other parties like fetus, father, state. Contrary to this, Buddhism by and large opposes abortion and considers it as taking a life. Considering embryo as a full human being, Buddhism considers killing embryo as a violation of a first precept. Taking in the record that every action and intention from existing life impacts both this and prospective life, the mother, the abortionist, and the person that should be born separate themselves from the enlightenment and fall more intensely into the suffering string of a rebirth. Other than killing, it portrays the villainous sense for mother like desire, resentment, and fallacy. Now, while the Western debate concerning the mother's right to choose on her own body and fetus life essentially is still in a progress, the Buddhist position is clear that mother is not a owner of being she carries in her womb. Interestingly, its antithesis is also available in the Buddhist canonical scriptures, which glorify the generosity of a woman who endures the discomfort of her delivery, gives birth, and owns the responsibility of parenting a child, but never asserts mother proprietary rights on a fetus. Now, in the canonical text, Buddhist canonical texts do not directly reflect on the issue of abortion. However, in the Mahayana text, Dharani Sutra, Buddha is believed to be talking about the abortion in a one way. He said there are 5 kinds of evil karma, which are difficult to extinguish, even if one were to repent on them. Now, what are these 5 kinds of offenses? The first one is killing the father, other is killing the mother, third is one having an abortion, and fourth is one is to cause injury. For the Buddha, the fifth one is to create a disharmony among the Sangha assembly, that is creating a division and schism. The reason of seeking abortion range from extramarital affairs to barring legacies and rivalry between co-wives. Even in Vinaya Pitaka, there are 7 cases of abortion that are mentioned. Because there's a limitation of a time, so I won't be going in a detail of 7 cases. Other than that, in Vinaya Pitaka, we also find 4 offenses that can disrobe monk or a nun of a Buddhist monastic order. These are engaging in sexual intercourse, stealing something of a value. Third is purposely killing a human being or encouraging someone to commit a suicide or convincing a woman to have an abortion. Fourth is boasting that one has realized an enlightenment while knowing one has not realized it yet. Now, in addition to that, in Eightfold Path, right action indicates a non-violence. It is a common consensus that Buddhists believe in rebirth. However, the diversity of Buddhist culture across Asia presents a difference of opinion on abortion. By and large, if we go by the view of Damien Keown, he says Buddhism does not, in his view, hold the key to much sought consensus on this issue, which has so far eluded the West. Buddhism cannot offer a middle way on abortion because it has already taken a side. Taniguchi states that from Buddhist perspective, Buddhist way is to find the least damaging option for both mother and fetus. Further, he insists on informed choices to the mother, since knowledge is regarded as greatest gift of all, surpassing all kind of material gifts in Buddhist tradition. So since abortion itself is a feminist issue and creates a divide amongst the right and left-wing women, by and large, it is clear that on a matter of abortion, Buddhist and feminist stand on opposite poles. Coming to the next section of surrogacy and resulting character. Surrogacy or assisted pregnancy is another issue which is common for both feminist and Buddhist bioethicists. It is definitely a contested concept and yet accepted by various schools of Buddhism, from Theravada to Mahayana to Vajrayana. Now, this very concept of a surrogacy rises from the compassion of a one woman towards another. In ancient India, a reverse idea of this concept was also very prevalent. Even the Buddha himself was raised by maternal aunt. One finds in numerous instances in Indian mythology, epics, and history where a child was raised by a non-biological mother. While it is true that deep compassion is reflected in the act of a surrogacy, but at the same time, it raises several ethical questions. One such question is raised by Sirivaru in their paper titled as Buddhist Ethics and Surrogate Problem in Present Thai Society. Now, the key question raised by them is about the morality involved in the technological usage. Other question that rises from the very act of a surrogacy are like, what are the consequences of the compassion shown by one woman to the other? Does it pushes a woman into the cycle and the circle of attachment and a pain? Can infertile and compassionate women coexist? When do we determine an autonomy of a child according to Buddhism? So while these questions may not have a definite answer, but in Buddhist terms, worldview is to have appreciation of a human life. Yet, to be born means to die. In the Indian subcontinent, there is no definite timeline of life and death. It is in a circular motion. Birth and death are merely a stoppage in Indian culture. Every time one has an opportunity to improve. A deadly insect can be reborn as the Buddha in next life. So it is only in India we have a one word for birth and a death and a time, that is Kal. If we go by the shlok of Bhagavad Gita, na jayate mriyate va kadachi nyaye bhutva bhavita va na bhuya, meaning the soul is neither born nor dies at any time, nor is it ever going to be born again, because it is unborn, eternal, and ancient. It is not killed even after the body is killed. In Buddhism, this phenomena is referred as Sabe Samkhara Anicca and Sabe Dhamma Anatta, meaning all composite phenomena are impermanent, all phenomena are empty and selfless. So even if we wish for a long life and a health, things may not always turn on the way we want. In other words, if possesses unreasonable desire, then our suffering becomes much larger. Buddhist thought regarding the merit making and its positive impact on a karma further justify the liberal access to gestational surrogacy in some countries like Thailand. So Buddhist canonical literature makes it clear that being born as a human is not an easy matter. Hence, we can deduce that one should not live a life full of regrets. One must live life fully, because this life will determine the next lives. Life itself is an opportunity and it has a potential to go up to Buddha as per Jatak tales. Darius in her paper also highlights, taking several examples from Therigata, that being a mother has nothing to do with the spiritual potential of a woman. Rather, mothering is used as a metaphor in Pali Suttas as a spontaneous act of a selfless care and love for another. Concluding this paper, I would like to mention here that this paper articulates some of my initial steps towards developing a common framework of a Buddhist and feminist bioethics. Feminists and Buddhists have developed a healthy skepticism about the traditional politics. Buddhism suggests avenues for a development of its strictly feminist spirituality, one that values the feminine qualities and modes of being and use them as a basis of a personal and social development. While the question of too much care arises when talking about the feminist bioethics, Buddhism overall describes the idea of excessive care because it may further lead to attachment. However, there is a large potential for both to come on the same platform and offer a better solution to the society. So with this, I would like to thank you all for listening my paper, and I'm gonna stop sharing my screen now. Thank you.
Thank you, Gurmeet. Thank you so much for a good and thoughtful presentation. Again, if you attendees have questions for Gurmeet and Gurmeet's presentation, please write down your questions on the Q&A box. And our last but not least speaker, Dr. Diana Cousins. Dr. Diana Cousins has a PhD in Himalayan studies and publishes on the Tibetan treasure tradition and engaged Buddhism. She is a founding president of Sakadika, Australia, and this is her sixth presentation at the Sakadika International Conference. She's a committee member of Buddhist Council of Victoria and Federation of Australian Buddhist Councils. She is also an honorary fellow of Australian Catholic University. Today, she's going to give us a talk titled A Buddhist Approach to Organ Donation. Diana?
Thank you very much. And it's a very great honor to be here. And I would like to acknowledge everybody present, and it's great to be with you. Contemporary modern medicine has made organ donation a possibility. This is a topic that Buddhists need to consider, as the donation of an organ is a form of generosity and may be life-saving. However, there is not a single unitary view about organ donation amongst Buddhists. The views vary according to the division of Mahayana and Theravada, and are also informed by ideas about the stages of death. In Australia, we have a system of collective representation of Buddhist temples in the form of state-based Buddhist councils. These councils provide a voice to government on topics of concern and a public face for such things as interfaith dialogue. I am the Vice President of the Buddhist Council of Victoria, and in 2020, I liaised with a group of hospitals called Western Health to promote a new protocol on organ donation for the Buddhist community. It was adopted at the annual general meeting of the Buddhist Council of Victoria that year, and it can be read on the website. The adoption and publication of the protocol enables an informed discussion by both patients, their loved ones, and medical staff. Examples of organ donation can be discovered in some very old Buddhist texts. It is the tradition that the historical Buddha, 500 BCE, achieved a stage of perfection after many lives practicing virtues, including generosity, and the stories of these previous lives are found in the Jataka tales. Sometimes this generosity involved cutting off a part of his body and giving it to others. One of the most famous stories is of how he cut his body and fed it to a hungry tigress who had starving cubs. The shrine of Namo Buddha in Nepal is regarded as the location of this event and is a pilgrimage site. Another story from the Buddha's past lives is of when he was born as the king of Sibi. A blind man approached him and asked for one eye. The king offered both his eyes. At that point, the blind man revealed himself as the god Indra, who gave blessings to the king for his intended generosity. These past life stories of the historical Buddha show the journey of the Buddha prior to enlightenment and demonstrate how he accumulated the necessary merit and wisdom to become enlightened. These great acts of generosity were a part of creating the causes and conditions for his final rebirth. Therefore, the idea of donating parts of your body to help others is deeply entrenched in the Buddhist tradition. Amongst Buddhists from Thailand, Sri Lanka, Burma, and others who practice the Theravada tradition, there is likely to be no objection. It is simply a matter of personal choice. On the other hand, issues arise around organ donation for the Mahayana Buddhists of Vietnam, China, Japan, Korea, and most especially Tibet. Questions arise because of beliefs about the journey of the subtle qualities of a person, skandhas, which includes consciousness, which travel from this body and this life into the next one. It is believed that a calm, smooth transition is helpful so as to achieve a good rebirth. Having your body cut open will upset the consciousness, and this distress will make it hard to have a good rebirth. Of course, there is an assumption here that a person has a slow and observable dying process. A person who dies suddenly in a car accident or as a result of a violent attack will not have the graduated process that is idealized. There are also questions about how much bodily awareness a person has after brain death. The idealized dying process is where monks and nuns chant in the room at the time of death. There is no disturbance from crying relatives, and the person has given away all of their possessions. The body is undisturbed for 8 hours. While Western medicine declares death as brain death, the Mahayana and especially the Tibetan tradition considers that death has many stages. Brain death, particularly with the heart still pumping, does not look like death to Mahayana Buddhists. To give a quick overview of the dying process as understood in the Tibetan tradition, it involves the following 4 stages. Buddhists believe that everything changes, nothing stays the same. The term bardo is a Tibetan term meaning in-between state, a state that is not fixed. From the perspective of the Tibetan Nyingmapa and Kagyupa traditions, even this life is an in-between state. I received these teachings from Chökyi Nyima Rinpoche and Orgyen Tulku in Kathmandu in 1987. The first bardo is the bardo of this life, from birth until the time when a person starts to die. The second bardo is the bardo of dying. This is the stage from acquiring a fatal illness to actually dying. The third stage, the bardo of dharmata, is the stage where the consciousness and other subtle characteristics of a human being make the transition to the next life. The fourth stage, the bardo of becoming, occurs where the luminous nature of mind is accessible but not recognized. The person arises separately to their deceased body in a subtle form that is aware of the old surroundings, and they seek a new rebirth. During the bardo of dying, the body becomes cold. A person becomes confused and experiences a range of visions. Their consciousness dissolves into space and breathing stops. Those who have practiced meditation and who accept the dying process experience less suffering. They experience space dissolving in luminosity as all the components of the mind become purified. This has names like the great original state of primordial purity. Those who retain an awareness and an ability to concentrate during this process will have the opportunity to realize the nature of mind at this time, as the mind is in its essential state. For some Tibetan Buddhists, organ donation is problematic because it interferes with this stage of dying. The Chinese and Vietnamese also share this concern about the time of organ donation, but some are trying to make an accommodation with the value of making a life-saving gift. The promise to give organs is treated as a compassionate vow and as such should be respected. The very revered Chinese master Sheng Yen has said, if a person made a vow to donate his organs or was very compassionate, once death is properly determined, removing his organs to save another won't cause him any harm or vexation and anger. But he specifies that those with attachment to their body will be disturbed because the spiritual consciousness will be aware of what is happening. For those who are willing, it is a great act of generosity, but the person must have ceased breathing and be properly determined as dead. I have consulted various medical friends and understand that a cerebral perfusion scan is the most reliable medical test of death. Master Sheng Yen also proposed that a deceased person would not experience pain if their body was anesthetized prior to organ donation. Now, this would require a leap of imagination by medical doctors who would not imagine that a deceased person with no brain function could need an anesthetic, but we are trying to find ways to accommodate different beliefs about death. In conversation with the Australian Vietnamese Buddhist abbot, Venerable Thich Phuc Tan, the principal concern that he expressed was the number of hours of chanting that would be allowed after a person's death has been determined by doctors. The traditional requirement is 8 hours of chanting. However, it is important that only those who have offered their organs have them taken, and that before it happens, the doctor reads aloud a statement to the person that reminds them that they made a vow to offer their organs, and so now their organs will be taken. A deceased person must be treated gently and with care and respect, and this point is in the protocol. If it is not possible to reconcile the requirement of 8 hours chanting after death with the removal of organs that are still usable for surgery, then a compromise position would be to allow the removal of tissues only. Tissues include the corneas from the eyes, and cornea transplant can enable a blind person to see. Tissues can be harvested up to 24 hours after a person's death. This would be achievable and also enable the required amount of chanting. So far, all I have touched upon are the practicalities of organ donation, given the specific concerns about not disturbing the consciousness at the time of death. These concerns are included in the Buddhist Council protocol, and there are several other very important points. The first is that the donor should have identified themselves during their lifetime. In that way, no one has to guess what their wishes would be. If people would like to save the lives of others or make a huge contribution through donating something like corneal tissue, then the conversation needs to happen during this life. We need to start talking about organ donation and identifying ourselves as donors or as not donors. Either way, loved ones need to be informed. And if you live in a country where you can join an organ donation register and you wish to be an organ donor, then please enter the register without delay. It is worth noting that even in spite of all these concerns about the consciousness at the time of death, I am aware of a very senior Tibetan Lama and ritual master here in Victoria who has registered as an organ donor. Another important life-saving gift that one can make in this life is blood donation. In Australia, you can donate blood 3 times a year if you are in very good health. This is a very meritorious and important act of generosity, and it luckily avoids all these questions about the consciousness at the time of death. But to return to organ donation. There are a huge number of complex questions relating to living donors, and it is a very serious problem that people may be pressured by their relatives to donate their kidneys, for example. No one has any spare organs. No one should be pressured into making an organ donation, and all living donors must receive the same standard of care as donor recipients. Another major problem is organ trafficking, and the sale of organs is expressly prohibited in Australia. The major international protocol concerning this is the Declaration of Istanbul on Organ Trafficking and Transplant Tourism, which was first published in 2008 and updated in 2018. And it has been signed by over 100 countries. Among other things, it says that trafficking in organs should be criminalized. Our Buddhist Council protocol includes the statement that living donors must have a Bill of Rights and an advocate to determine that they are not being exploited. This topic also points to a number of other issues. Organ donation is a very expensive and complex procedure, and it is useful to note that primary care, particularly the care of mothers and new babies, is often underfunded. Also, organs may fail because of a lack of preventative care or because of lifestyle illnesses like type 2 diabetes. In a world where there will never be enough organs for all, it is useful to remember that the historical Buddha founded his religion on the observation of the reality of old age, sickness, and death. No amount of new organs will ever ultimately beat death. And it is a Buddhist perspective that those that have an attitude that accepts the impermanence of life will experience a better death. If there is time, I would like to read 2 prayers written for this paper by Annie Whitlock, who is a Buddhist living in Melbourne and a professional palliative carer. So she wrote this prayer for the recipient. This day we open our hearts in gratitude to the unknown person and their loved ones who donated this precious life-sustaining organ. Now our recipient's name lives. The elements of earth, fire, water, and wind moved from this cherished person, resulting in their much grieved death. These elements then took rise in our beloved son, daughter, husband, etc. And as the element of earth gave strength and vigor, the element of fire gave warmth and life. The element of water gave the rush of fresh blood through the organs, and the element of air gave a fresh wind of renewal. May our undying gratitude serve you well on your journey of consciousness. And she wrote a second prayer for the donor. May the merit of offering these precious life-giving organs sustain your next transition, beloved name of person. In humility, we respected your wishes to continue to be of service to humanity. Our tears are for your selflessness and your most glorious act of life to offer to another in great need. May the elements of your once vibrant body be transferred to another, therefore resulting in the life-sustaining elements of earth, water, fire, and wind continuing on. Countless people have been touched by your most glorious act of continuing precious human life. Okay, so that's my paper. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Thanks for the clear and very illuminating presentation, Diana. Thank you very much. Okay, we are on time and we have about half an hour Q&A session. And attendees, you can continue to posting your questions on the Q&A session, the box. So, well, first thing first, and first speaker for Debra. Please let me read the questions for your presentation. The easy one first. Would you like to, well, the attendee like to hear again the 3 intentions of Master Cheng Yen? Started with the word purify, mentioned at the end of presentation with a slide, which included the word no killing, respect, life. So, Debra, would you go and talk about your the explanation of 3 intentions of Master Cheng Yen?
Thank you. Thank you. This is a very wonderful question. Thank you for being so attentive. Master Zheng Yan, she has 3 wishes every year. Now is the last week of the 2021. Every year, 3 New Year's wishes purifies people's mind. Harmonious society, disasters around the world. The way we are facing right now, the topic I share today from COVID-19, as a matter of fact, we are facing a lot of disaster every day, and we did not have a chance to really look back. So everyone, if we can be more attentive, more mindful every day from our heart, if we can create and encourage ourselves as a positive energy, purify our heart, our mind, our soul, from ourselves, the individual inner circle, then we expand it to the middle circle, harmonious society. Every day, Master Zheng Yan, when she wake up, the only thing she think about in her mind, I'm so grateful, I'm still have a chance to breathe. And then from there, she say, I'm so grateful, I have a capacity to accept appreciation. So from the inner circle to middle circle and expand it to large circle, the universe is free from the disasters. People's mind always will change the dynamic community energy. So if we can leading the positive thinking, like a Buddha overlooks the Mother Earth, the universe. Now the pandemic create panic mode, Omicron, Delta, everybody is so nervous. However, if we can provide positive education, get vaccination, overcome the scare, the skeptical, the mistrust, so we can create a harmonious society. And the most important, every day we have to eat. What we going to eat? Animal is a life. Everyone has a life. So if we can respect all the life who can breathe the air, no killing, then from there, we can live together. We figure out what will be the best way. So right now, we promote vegetarian diet, plant-based diet. We cannot just say, okay, eat vegetable, but where's the vegetable coming from? So you have to provide how to plant the vegetable. So from urban to suburban, from rural to the city, we provide a lot of know-how education, vegetable garden. So no killing, respect life is not a slogan. is action. Action, every woman. We are the key support of the family. We are the leaders of the grassroots. We can create a positive energy and leading the directions for everyone to follow. And the most important, when we do it, we have to collect the successful story. We have to collect the data. I'm always reminding everyone, at this current date, scientific approach always based on data talk. Data talk. Data can translate into a number. The number can lead into a policy. A policy can help everybody not say follow, but a direction to go. So hopefully I answered the Master Zheng Yan's 3 wishes every year for your question. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Debra. Thanks for your response. Thank you. Even though Debra has one more question, but I'd like to go to Gurmeet. I know that Gurmeet, you responded the question on the live chat, but would you like to explain your answers one more time, if you like?
Yeah, I can try it again. Like I mentioned that.
Okay, so please let me read the questions. How does soul originate, and how could it ever end? And if not, where would it go to? Okay, so.
All right, so I guess Dr. Diana and I have answered it partially when she was talking about the Boudreaux, 6 Boudreaux. So Buddhism does not suggest the starting point of an individual life. As I mentioned in my presentation, even in Indian culture, it's in a circular motion. We do not have a definite timeline of a life and a birth. But like Dr. Diana said, that Boudreaux, according to Vajrayana or Tibetan Buddhism, and the Tibetan Book of Dead per se, there are 6 Boudreaux. The first one is the natural Boudreaux of this life. Second is the painful Boudreaux of dying. Then the luminous Boudreaux of dharmata, and the karmic Boudreaux of becoming. And then the next 2 are Boudreaux of meditation and dreaming. So if we talk about the conception of a life, or per se the fetus, for the conception, there are 3 conditions as per the Buddhist view. For these 3 conditions are: the intercourse must take place, it must be, the woman must be in the fertile period, and there must be an immediate, being available to be a reborn. And that is a view of a Damien Keon. With this, I hope I was able to answer your question partially. And as far as the end of the life is concerned, I am still working on it. Perhaps we can connect some other time, whosoever is asking the question, and I'll leave my email in a chat box. Thank you.
Thank you, Gurmeet. The question, who put the question, you just send to that Gurmeet's email or continue to discuss about that. All right, and Diana, I think your presentation is super clear. So I didn't get the questions yet, but may I ask you if you have anything to add, or add some comments on your presentation? Then you can go ahead.
Thank you. I think that perhaps the important point is to have a conversation about whether organ donation is a possibility for oneself or not. Because if it is a possibility, then many people will benefit from promoting organ donation. And if it's not a possibility, then it's important that people know what you believe. So I think it's important to raise awareness about the issue. And I think the Buddhist Council protocol is a useful instrument because we've organized the issues into a simple half-a-page document that can be used by doctors and hospitals and families and donors and so on, so that the issues have been analysed and considered, and so that there's an easy way to enter into the discussion. So I think it's always, it's useful to have a protocol if you are running a center or a temple, or if you're running a Buddhist organization or council or whatever, so that the thinking through of these issues can, be there already done, so that you don't have to start at the beginning and maybe get lost in a sidetrack or something. You can just work through on the basis of a protocol.
Dr. Diane Kusin, your presentation is wonderful. I would like to take this opportunity to share. Buddha Tzu Chi Foundation, Master Zheng Yan, we have one major mission is marrow donor registry. We have been promoting organ donation for more than 40 years. We have a group of volunteers engaged into this directions. So Buddhists in terms of silent mentors. So when people expired, I'm working in the hospital, so I'm using the people expired. When they expired, they have an opportunity to save another people's life. One donation can save more than 13 people's life. So the legacy to carry on for Buddhist, at least for Buddhist Tzu Chi Foundation, Master Zheng Yan is always teaching us how to transform the useless to become useful. So your organ, maybe in USA, in the global perspective of medical field, when they pronounce brain death, your function, your organ is not available, but some other people, maybe there's a match, can rebirth and reborn. So in the Tzu Chi Foundation, Buddhists in Actions, giving donation to saving life, to thrive another rebirth for another human's capacity. We are working on that direction. So again, every one of us, you are welcome to visit Buddha Tzu Chi Foundation website and the social media, Google for Tzu Chi Marrow Donor Registry. You can see that. So we are not only talking about organ donation, we do the tissue and then bone. So it's a profound life. And every silent mentor, we talk about the donor as a silent mentor. They donated their body, their organ to become a teachers for the medical school students. They can learn from the mentor and to prepare themselves when they go to the hospital. They have a proper professional medical terminology and experience to save another people's life. So I would like to take this opportunity to share with everyone.
Thank you. And I'm very pleased to hear about that. We need to be more aware of what programs are in place in different Buddhist communities. I think it's really good. And also, I think sometimes, we're all focused on the practice of meditation, but the practice of generosity is one of the most important Buddhist practices. And I always like to point out it has three characteristics: the practice of giving material things, giving the Dharma, and giving freedom from fear. I don't think we often hear enough about the generosity of giving freedom from fear. And there's so many wars in the world and people seeking refuge all over the world from calamities, disasters, the climate calamity and so on. Giving freedom from fear is also a really important practice of generosity. But giving organs is in the characteristic of giving material things, but it's also giving life. And giving blood is also giving life. And, these are really great things, in the practice of generosity. It's very good for one's being, I think, to practice generosity in different ways.
Thank you, Diana. And thank you, Debra. Diana, we have some questions for you. At least 3 questions. The question I will read. I've thought about body donation to research as a part of studies of decomposition. It is also a gift.
Yes, absolutely. That's a huge gift because you're helping to train the medical professionals of the future. And that way, many lives are saved by one single doctor. So yes, if people have that courage and that generosity, that's an extraordinary gift.
Okay, the next question for you, Diana again. Organ donation in the case of yogis whose organs cannot be harvested before completing clear light meditations.
Yes, that's right. So yeah, so the question is, I understand this is the thing I was talking about because of the consciousness of the time of death, not wanting to interfere with the realization of the luminous nature of mind. You know, organ donation isn't for everyone. It's really very, very much a personal choice. And there may be many reasons why people choose not to donate organs. And it's also the case that only a young and very healthy person really is, I mean, there are not a lot of organs available to be donated from an older sick person. It's a younger, healthier person who has that capacity. So it isn't for everyone. But it is possible for some. So it's a conversation that's important. But yes, for yogis who don't wish to have their body disturbed at the time of death, then certainly it's not a possibility. There's a lot of people for whom it's not a possibility.
Okay, thank you. Debra,
Yes.
I have one more question received. What do you think about getting more involved in policy or changes in the law?
That's a very, very good question. When I'm talking about data talk, data can transfer into policy and then also the governance. So what we need to do, we really need to participate. Like now, the United Nations had the climate change UNCCC meeting and also UNEP meeting. There's so many high-level meetings. We need to be part of the stakeholders to voice out. So like I share with you and all the participants today, all the information we collect, those are the true stories. So we need to transfer those data, those stories into a so-called roadmap. The roadmap will guiding to the policy and lawmaker to follow. For example, now in London, in Germany, they are very supportive for plant-based diet. This time, I just came back from Glasgow, UNCCC COP26. Inside the conference, majority are vegetarian food, and the majority are vegetable growing locally. So this kind of outcome, when we talk about KPI, we talk about the outcome. Why we have this outcome? Because when the event set it up, they already pay attention to climate justice. They already pay attention for climate change. They already be aware, empower the local farmers to engage. So the policy may take a long time. Everybody say government only talk, no action. 2050, 2025, 2030, we're going to face a lot of challenges. I'm always telling them and always sharing policy and procedure and law can be updated, can be changed based on the foundation, how you reflect the true data, how you can share the roadmap leading to the direction that we want to lead to. So my engagement to share with you all is collaboration, communication, and coordination. Most important, we have to have a compassion to put into the faith, the Buddhist in actions. So engagement will be the key success for law and policy maker to heard our voices. Thank you.
Thank you, Debra. Question for Gurmeet. The recognizing that virtually all the extant canon has been written and copied by men. Do you, Gurmeet, do you think that there is a male bias in the view about abortion and women's bodily autonomy?
Well, thank you, Jane, for asking this question. When it comes to abortion and women's bodily autonomy, the view differs to the great extent, I mean to say. Why? Because Theravada text says something different and Mahayana and Vajrayana would say something else. For instance, because my PhD thesis is focused on Tibetan women living in exile, I can tell you about the Vajrayana in depth. So women's bodily autonomy in Vajrayana, they have been given a great autonomy in a sense. In 7th and 8th century, the Tantra crept into the system. So Tantra, as per, gives a larger autonomy and to women, and we can say that it gives them a space to practice, and not copy what men are doing. So which is not same in the Theravada. So as far as abortion is concerned, so I'm still working on about the topic of abortion in Vajrayana. So as soon as I complete it, I'll be able to publish it, perhaps share with you all through Sakyadita. Thank you.
Thank you, Gurmeet. Thank you so much. And now 23, we have 7 more minutes. It's going to be the second or second to the last or last question. And the question for Diana. Please let me read the question. I am from Nepal. I have decided to donate all my organs, which can be transplanted, and whole bodies as well. But unfortunately, in our country, there is no perfect legal policy. So I'm in confusion.
Yeah, well, I suggest that the person speaks to their the main hospital in Kathmandu if they're in Kathmandu. I don't know where they are, but there are hospitals in Kathmandu that are very sophisticated. So I would have a talk to the hospital in Kathmandu and see what their processes are, whether they have an organ register, whether they do organ transplant, or whatever is possible. But if there is no such thing as organ transplantation in Nepal and they're going to stay in Nepal, then perhaps there is blood donation. Perhaps the person could donate their blood, and that's something you can do in Australia 3 times a year. You donate half a litre of blood 3 times a year. And there is no life-limiting quality to it. It's very achievable. But yes, of course, I mean, everybody is subject to local circumstances, and organ donation is a very sophisticated and expensive and highly qualified process. So it's not possible in all places and all times. I did my PhD research in the Western Himalayas, and in a village called Chiloknath. They don't even have a chemist there. You can't buy aspirin or Band-Aids or anything. So I mean, like in a lot of places in the world, the medical facilities are very limited. So this is really a conversation that happens in highly sophisticated urban areas.
Thank you, Diana. Thank you so much for the responses. And first and foremost of all, thank you so much, your excellent presentations. And applaud to you, 3 presenters. And thanks for your technological support, Jackson. And thank you very much for attending the third paper session. Now I'm closing our session, and I'm living in Minnesota right now, and it's now 9:26 p.m. So good evening, good night, and good morning, good afternoon. And thank you so much.